It's an international reply coupon actually used as postage. So what we see is here, this is the cover. It was mailed. This is the front of the cover. And on the back, I better minimize that. The person, we can only presume, this is the international reply coupon, canceled both in Ontario when it was purchased, and then canceled back in Hungary when it was actually turned in for postage. But, and here's the only guess I have, here's the cancellation from when it was presumed to be bought by Joe Contas, because the reply was sent to him. So when Joe bought this, of course, it's not tied to the letter because it was only affixed to the letter when it was stuck on the reply. So it's correct that it shouldn't have been tied here because it was never attached to this when it was canceled in Ontario. But it was canceled here in this little town. I had a hard time figuring out where it was. Hidvigardo, which in northern Hungary, which has a population of 2021 of 522 people. It's way up here.
Wow.
I don't know what the population would have been in 1946, but and the guess is that he included this in his letter to Karex Ferenc, which is a popular name, and I think in Hungary. He went to the post office, exchanged it, but because of the shortage of postage stamps right after the war, the clerk decided to use the IRC as postage.
Yeah. What's the date?
46, 1946.
Oh,
January,
yes.
February, March, April, May 24th.
Right. They had that terrible inflation in Hungary at that time.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was one of the worst cases of inflation, just as bad or worse than the one in Germany in 1923.
Wow.
There were stamps issued during that period, with hundreds of thousands or hundreds of millions of units of currency. But it could be that there were no stamps available, at this post office at the time, or at least none that would serve for, or maybe they didn't even know what the rate was because the inflation was so rampant.
I have a question about that item. Those receipts were not supposed to be used as postage. That was not the way. So
Right.
How did they get the accounting? How did Hungary get paid for having sent this message back to wherever they sent it to? Because normally they would take that receipt, give the person stamps, and then that receipt would go through the system somehow, and the country would get paid for the postage they given. So,
or maybe they just honor it as, like part of the universal postage union. You just honor it because another country will honor the ones that you sell to your customers.
Because there was no exchange of, I don't think UPU is responsible for reimbursing countries for mail and letters sent internationally. You just bit the bullet.
That's right. In other words, if someone mails a letter from a foreign country here, our post office delivers it without getting paid anything.
Yeah.
Well, presumably there's another letter going the other way at some point.
That's right. That's right. And all countries agree to do this.
I can't imagine that it actually worked out that way, but do you have some information that's how?
Well, that's how it works now. Yes. As far as I know, that's how it's always worked.
Well, what they do, each country does an audit about every 2 years, and they decide if they're getting a fair shake or not. For instance, an enormous amount of stuff might be mailed from China to the United States because they produce things. So these would be packages.
Yeah, including the stamps.
And they do an audit and they can adjust. I've read this online that if the United States decides all of a sudden that the mails coming and going from Panama are excessively in Panama's favor, then they adjust and they change the rates.
Change the postal rates?
There's a fee you pay or something like that. And if they will, unless Panama negotiates to pay a certain amount, I don't know how they do it, but it isn't something that just was set up years ago and it's continued without being audited, and people do verify. that it seems approximately fair, coming and going.
I can shed some insight on that. I'm just going to share my screen again on that subject of the audits. The UK did their audits that Roger was referring to in October of each year. And when they did that audits, is only in October. Looking at this cover, it has this diamond cancel on it. And that means it was mailed and processed by the UK Post Office in October. You'll only see that diamond census mark is what it's called on mail received in the UK in October. And it also had it on, for example, a cover. First I caught it when I saw it on a Qatar cover. It was mailed from another country to Portugal, but went through the UK postal system. And for the auditing purposes, that they wouldn't know that that was counted. So they had to put the diamond cancel as part of some kind of counting strategy for the audits to count how many letters were handled that weren't actually franked with they knew how many stamps were mailed from within the country, but not stamps that were processed, mailed outside of the country and went into the UK, either for addresses within UK or just in transit. If you're interested in finding any of these diamond cancels, they are available on the internet. The diamond census, what you should be looking for.
What
Well,
is
they
the
do it
purpose
for-
of the diamond?
They would track the number of this, just a count, a census. How many letters did they process in October this year?
I just don't understand why they had to put a diamond on the cover in order
Yeah,
to
they would count it.
do
as-
this counting.
They did. Maybe it was their way of knowing. Maybe the machine that did the diamonds was counting automatically.
Yeah, and
Maybe,
then,
maybe it had like some, automatic dial counter attached to the stamping mechanism or something like that.
and then the diamond would indicate, okay, this one's been counted.
Yeah. But if you do a search on eBay for diamond census, UK, and you may see some of the other covers. Presumably there'd be some American covers too.